Starting off this countdown in no particular order, we have Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson's dad, Charles Harrelson, was an American hitman and organized crime figure. Yes, you heard me correctly. Beloved actor Woody Harrelson had a father who was a cold-blooded killer. He was just 7 at the time when his father first went to prison. It's said that he was responsible for the deaths of at least 20 people. In 1979, that is when Charles committed his biggest kill of all time. He took out a federal judge by the name of Judge John H. Wood Jr. He was the first federal judge to be killed in the 20th century. He was paid $250,000 to kill off this judge. It was because a drug dealer was about to be sentenced by this judge, who was known as Maximum John, because he always gave out really harsh punishments to drug dealers. So he got Charles to knock him off for him. But this landed him behind bars and in solitary confinement. He was there until he was 69 when he died from a heart attack. Obviously, Woody does not want to be defined by his father's actions. In our 9th spot, we have Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin is one of the few actors who actually grew up in a cult. He was born into the commune of Children of God, but when he was 4 years old, his parents managed to escape the cult and move. That's actually why they changed their last name to Phoenix, as it symbolizes rebirth, since they were able to leave this cult and start a new life. Unfortunately, he also lost his brother at a young age. In 1993, his brother River Phoenix died from an overdose. Joaquin witnessed this happen, and he was the one that called 911. In our 8th spot today, we have Phil Lewis. Phil Lewis is best known for his role of Mr. Mosby on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and I freaking love that show. Like, it was honestly my childhood. Well, before his Disney Channel days, he actually killed someone. In December of 1991, Lewis fatally hit a 21-year-old woman. She passed away from her injuries from the hit. It was found that Lewis was driving while intoxicated. His blood alcohol levels were 3 times the legal limit of intoxication. As a result, he was convicted of a DUI as well as manslaughter. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, 2 years probation, and 350 hours of community service. But he managed to only serve 1 year in prison. I guess Disney was able to overlook his past when he auditioned for Mosby on the show. In our 7th spot today, we have Tim Allen. Now, if you look at Tim Allen, you think, aw, he's such a family man. I love Home Improvement and Toy Story. He's a great actor. Wow. Tim Allen actually had quite a dark past before he got into acting. In 1978, Allen was arrested for attempting to traffic more than 650 grams of coke. He was arrested in Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport. Now, he actually would have served a lifetime in prison, but he avoided this by giving police information about other dealers. As a result, his sentence was reduced to 3 to 7 years. He ended up serving 2 years and 4 months in prison and then was granted parole in 1981. I guess that's why they say don't judge a book by its cover, because he looks like a wholesome dad, not a trafficker. In our 6th spot, we have Jack Nicholson. In 1974, Time magazine discovered that Jack's sister, June, was actually his mother, not his sister. How wild is that? So June was only 17 when she became pregnant with Jack, and she wasn't married, so her parents agreed to raise the child as their own, with Jane and Lorraine acting like his older sisters. So his parents were actually his grandparents, and his sister Lorraine was his aunt. In regards to his dad, we don't know for sure who is his dad, but some say it was likely June's manager. Other sources claim June really just doesn't know who the father was. By the time Jack found this all out, his mom, June, and his grandma had already passed away. Imagine how that would have changed his life. Like, he was raised on a lie.
In at number 5, Robert Downey Jr. At this point, it's pretty common knowledge that Downey had a history of drug addiction, but what most people don't realize is that his issues all began at the age of 6 years old. His father was a filmmaker and drug addict who gave his son a to smoke at the age of 6. Downey claims that he was surrounded by drugs as a young kid and often used drugs as a way to kind of bond with his troubled father. He believed that when they did drugs together, it was his father's way of expressing love for him in the only way that he knew how. He nearly ended his acting career after being arrested several times for possession of heroin and use before spending a year in prison in 1999, which meant the cancellation of several acting jobs that he had lined up. After struggling even more with drug abuse between 2001 and 2003, Downey finally was able to kick the habit through a combination of the 12-step recovery program, meditation, yoga, and martial arts training.
Moving on to number 4, we have Leighton Meester. Now, I personally did not know this, but Blair Waldorf, aka Leighton Meester, wasn't always the queen bee of Manhattan. In fact, she was born in prison. Basically, her mom was serving a sentence after smuggling a lot of marijuana out of Jamaica with the help of Layton's dad and Aunt Judy. All of them ended up behind bars. In fact, her aunt managed to escape prison and became America's first woman on the US Marshals 15 Most Wanted list. How insane is that? In the end, Layton's grandmother raised her while her mom served 16 months in prison. Thank gosh she didn't follow in her family's footsteps. In our third spot, we have Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken was involved in a death that is just shrouded in mystery. On November 29th, 1981, 43-year-old actress Natalie Wood was found dead floating face down in the Pacific Ocean. She was on a yacht with her husband Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken when this happened. The thing is, no one really knows what happened to her. Some say she slipped off the deck and fell into the water, while others are convinced that her husband or Christopher Walken had something to do with it, or that they know what happened. One theory is that Natalie and Christopher were having an affair, Wagner found out about it, got mad, and pushed her off the yacht. Now, Wagner seems to be the prime suspect, but many people think that Walken knows exactly what happened. I mean, he barely even talks about the case, and on the rare occasion that he did, he would call it an accident, and also he was absent from the documentary about her. All I'm gonna say is someone knows something. I'm getting the vibe that Walken knows what happened and maybe he just feels guilty about it. In our second spot, we have Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron actually had a very traumatic upbringing. Her dad struggled with alcohol addiction and would constantly threaten Charlize and her mom, Gerda. He would never physically hurt her, but he would hurt Gerda. One night in June of 1991, he got angry and fired shots at both of them. During that altercation, Gerda ran and grabbed her own handgun that she had kept hidden and shot him back. Her shots killed him while Charlize watched it all unravel. In the end, it was declared self-defense and Gerda never faced any charges. But think how traumatizing that must have been for her to see her mother shoot and kill her dad as a teenager. And in our number one spot today, we have Ashton Kutcher. Now, I never knew this and I was incredibly shocked when I found out about it. But on February 21st of 2001, Ashton Kutcher went over to his then girlfriend's house, Ashley Elrin. The two had planned on going to a post-Grammy party, but when he knocked on the door, there was no answer. That's because Ashley was dead on the floor of her home. She had been stabbed 47 times by a man named the Hollywood Ripper. He was responsible for the death of up to 10 women. As a result, Ashton Kutcher lost his girlfriend very suddenly and in a very traumatic way. He was also scared that he was going to be a suspect in the murder investigation since his fingerprints were on her door, but he never was, but he did have to testify in court.
First up on our list today is Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando is considered to be one of the most handsome Hollywood stars to grace the silver screen. He is also known for being an extremely talented actor who led a bit of a rough and tumble life. But what you may not know is that his ladies' man attitude resulted in various affairs and marriages, and well, 8 kids, with the actor adopting 3 additional kids on top of that. And sadly, some of these children would have extremely unhappy lives. In 1990, one of Marlon Brando's sons, Christian, shot his sister Sheehan's boyfriend. Apparently, he had suspected that Sheehan's boyfriend was harming her physically, and so Christian ended up taking his life when the altercation escalated. He was charged with manslaughter and served 6 years in prison. Sadly, that wasn't the only horror that the Brando children would go through, as only 5 years later, Sheehan tragically ended up taking her own life after a diagnosis with schizophrenia and a steady mental decline. Next on the list is Liv Tyler. We all know her as the stunning half-elf woman in Lord of the Rings. She's also known as the daughter of Steven Tyler, the eccentric frontman of Aerosmith. However, that wasn't always the case. Liv Tyler was originally born as Liv Rundgren, and she believed that the famous musician and music producer Todd Rundgren was her father. However, a chance encounter as an 8-year-old with Steven Tyler started to unravel Liv's true parentage. During the meeting, Steven pointed out the eerie similarities between his own daughter and Liv, which led to her mother finally confessing the secret. Liv wasn't related to Todd at all, and in fact, her mother had kept the secret to protect her daughter because Steven was going through some serious substance issues at the time of their brief relationship. Liv eventually changed her last name to Tyler, but kept Rundgren as her middle name in homage to the man who raised her as his own at some point. Damn, I wish I had 2 rock star dads. Next up is MMA legend Ronda Rousey. She's got a spectacular record, and it's impossible to penetrate her amazing fighting legacy as she has cemented herself as one of the greats. Her personal life though, well, a little touchier. In fact, Ronda has a history of aggression in her past relationships, having violently harmed an ex-boyfriend. She is also a conspiracy theorist who has some extremely harmful opinions. She shared on her Twitter that she believes that the horrifying Sandy Hook incident was actually a manufactured incident and that the people and children involved were actually actors. I can't think of anything more harmful and disgusting than promoting that the real-life harm of was done to take away guns from Americans. Rhonda shared the video and described it as, quote, extremely interesting and a must-watch documentary. Eventually, after obvious backlash, Rhonda deleted the video and her manager attempted to scrub any trace of it from the internet, which obviously didn't happen because it is in fact the internet.
In at number 7, Katie Holmes. Just 5 days before Tom Cruise celebrated his 50th birthday, his wife of 5 years, Katie Holmes, filed for divorce in New York. The world was completely shocked by this secret being unearthed. The couple had been spotted together on the set of Oblivion in Iceland just days before, and they were strolling along like nothing was going on. Like, everything's fine, don't look at us. Apparently Holmes orchestrated her escape, if you will, from Cruise very carefully. She set up secret meetings with lawyers and prepared to battle for sole custody of their daughter Shuri. Now, although the details leading up to this was kept secret, if you were watching the tabloids, one could assume that she was using them to shift the public's perspective. Katie Holmes used the sympathies of the tabloids to convince people that she was just this kind of passive wife of Tom Cruise, was a maniac, which is believable, right? The weirdest part was that right after her divorce, she had all of these events set up where there would be people there to photograph her. Normally, following a divorce, you would think that you'd, take some time to yourself, take some time off from work maybe, but nope, she just went right to the cover of the August issue of Elle magazine.
Next up is the actor who portrayed Spider-Man in the original Spider-Man movies, the ones with the PlayStation font. Well, Tobey Maguire has had an insane childhood that was largely hidden from the public when he became an A-lister. He came from a very financially strained family. His parents adopted several of his cousins after his aunt passed away suddenly, and the weight of now caring for all these kids left them destitute and broke. In a desperate attempt to provide for all these children, Toby's dad attempted to rob a bank. His attempt was unsuccessful, and his father had to spend some time in prison for his crime. Thankfully though, he was released after a few years because it was his first time offending, and the judge sympathized with his cause. Luckily for them, they made it out of the ordeal, and now Toby is an internationally recognized celebrity.
Through, and we have her secret on makeup. Forbes named her the youngest self-made billionaire after she started her own beauty company, Kylie Cosmetics. Her entire world revolves around makeup, quite literally, since it's basically her full-time income. Unlike her sister Kendall, she doesn't do modeling, and she isn't really in the fashion industry like her other Kardashian sisters. So it might surprise people to learn that even though she created a beauty empire around makeup, she doesn't actually like wearing makeup. She exposed her little secret and said that she only wears makeup because that's what her fans like to see on her social media. She says that she has a passion for makeup, but she doesn't personally like to wear it often, and that there is a difference between the two. I get that. I like makeup. I'm intrigued by makeup. I like makeup. I don't like wearing it though. I can't wait to take it off.
Next up is a K-pop idol whose secret is definitely out of the bag at this point. We all know just how strict and borderline harmful the K-pop industry is towards its stars, often restricting diets to near starvation in an attempt to get their already lean singers to lose weight, alongside 12 to 20 hours a day of dance practice. But one K-pop idol from the band Bang Bang has some dark underground secrets that only recently came to light. Seungri was sentenced last year to 3 years in prison for the crime of running an underground nightclub that bet heavily on foreign casinos where gambling is illegal. He was also charged with providing women to business executives for, services. Apparently, he's been doing this for years, and we only recently found out during a Korean military bust. Now it seems like sadly his K-pop days are over as he spends the next 3 years behind bars.
In at number 3, Charlie Sheen. No one has really been attacked in the press like Charlie Sheen has. Not saying he hasn't earned some of his controversies, but let's just say that there are some very shady people in this world. The notorious actor appeared on NBC's Today Show in 2015 to announce that he was HIV positive. Charlie had been diagnosed with HIV 4 years prior and finally revealed his secret after several people actually tried to blackmail him. Allegedly, there were some people threatening to reveal this secret unless he gave them $10 million.
I'm here to admit that I am in fact HIV positive. and I have to put a stop to this onslaught.
If the timeline is 4 years from this interview, then his diagnosis would have come right as this whole controversy with the show 2.5 Men started. You know, the one where he said in a bunch of interviews that he had tiger blood and Adonis DNA. Like, it's no wonder with that much press on him already that he didn't want to also reveal what could even be perceived as a weakness to his health.
Second to first on our list is Oprah Winfrey. The talk show host who revolutionized the game, Oprah's name is synonymous with the monolithic empire she's built surrounding her image. She's known for her lovable, relatable, and welcoming personality. But her humble beginnings make her rise to fame all the more deserved. In fact, Oprah was born in Mississippi to a single teenager mom, and she grew up in extreme poverty. During her childhood, the cost of raising a baby became too much for the young mother, so she sent Oprah to go live with her father, or at least one of the men who she thinks might have been her father. During her time with her dad, Oprah's mom gave birth to 2 more babies, one of which was given up for adoption. The real kicker here is that Oprah only found out about her sister Patricia in 2010. While a gut reaction to this news may be to cast harsh judgment on Oprah's mother, it is important to remember that it is impossible to know what it is like unless you have been in her position. For those who have been, we think you understand the brevity of her decision. Last up is Nicolas Cage. Now, I guess it's not exactly a dark secret here, and I may be cheating a little bit, but I only just found this out when I was writing the script, and wow, wild. Anyways, Nicolas Cage is known for his fun and sometimes extremely cheesy acting in movies like Face Off and Ghost Rider. But what you may not know is that Nicolas Cage isn't even his real name. In fact, Cage's birth name is Nicholas Kim Coppola, and his uncle is the famed director Francis Ford Coppola. The name change resulted from his wish not to cash in on the fame associated with the Coppola name in Hollywood, though the actor did end up appearing in several of Francis's films. It is quite believable when thinking about it for a few seconds, as both talents are just as eccentric as the other. The principal difference is that Francis Ford Coppola's odd ideals gave the world masterpieces like The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, while Cage gifts audiences with wild overacting and melodrama. Starting off this countdown in no particular order, we've got Jon Hamm. Jon Hamm is most notably famous for his role in the hit television series Mad Men as a cutthroat advertising executive. What he may not want you to know about him, however, were his less than savory college days that landed him in some serious trouble. In 1990, Jon was arrested for his alleged role in a fraternity hazing that turned horribly violent. His fraternity house was even dissolved after Hamm and his friends harmed a pledge so violently that he was in the hospital, even going as far as to light him on fire. Jon was charged with a misdemeanor offense, and when he was asked about it in 2018, his response wasn't the best. Quote, "I was essentially acquitted. I wasn't convicted of anything. I was caught up in a big situation, a stupid kid in a stupid situation, and it was a bummer. I moved on from it." Okay, now we're moving on, I guess. And at number 9 is Richard Pryor, the iconic comedian who is often cited as direct inspiration for other comedy legends like Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle. Pryor changed the game. But what you may not know is that there was an extremely dark past behind the All Smiles comic. Richard grew up in an extremely unstable childhood, raised by a substance-using mother in a brothel in Illinois. Richard saw things that no child should ever have to see, and to cope with such a horrifying childhood, he also turned to substance use to self-medicate. Richard was married 7 times to 5 different women who had trouble with the comic's insatiable personal life. He even almost passed away at his own hand when he doused himself in rum and lit himself on fire while using substances. Pryor's friend even stated in an interview, quote, "He has about 13 personalities, and while you could deal with 9 of them, the other 4 are a nightmare." At number 8 is Billy Tipton. Billy Tipton, if you haven't heard of him, was a revered jazz musician who rose to fame in the 1940s and 1950s. He lived his life in relative normalcy outside of his celebrity status. Although he was never married, he did have 5 serious girlfriends, all of whom referred to themselves as Miss Tipton. Eventually, he settled down with a woman named Kelly, and they adopted 3 sons together. It wasn't until his death from a stomach ulcer in 1989 that, as he was being rushed to the hospital, his giant secret was uncovered. Billy Tipton was born a woman and had concealed his sex throughout his entire life. life, even from his relationships. The revelation came as, quote, a shock to nearly everyone, including the women who had considered themselves his wives, as well as his sons and the musicians who traveled with him. To explain away any intimacy that would have happened between his partners, Billy reportedly said that he was in a serious car accident that mutilated his body, leaving him unable to perform. At the time this was revealed, it sent shockwaves through the music scene where trans performers were basically completely unheard of. In at number 7 is Prince. The iconic pop singer is considered one of the greatest musicians to have ever lived, but he also had a secret that was only uncovered upon his tragic and sudden death in 2016. After he passed, many stories started to come to light as both bank statements became public and from various sources. These bank statements revealed that Prince had been secretly donating insane sums of money to various charities throughout his life, each with the condition that the donation be private and that the donor be kept a secret. A few organizations that he did support in the days before his death were the Harlem Children's Zone and Uptown Dance Academy, New York. He even donated $12,000 to the Louisville Free Public Library in order to keep it from closing, all under the condition that they keep his name unlisted from donor records. He reportedly gave thousands away at a time, particularly to charities related to children, as his own child tragically passed away after only 6 days of life. He also focused on environmental issues, and uniquely, unlike a lot of celebrities who choose to invest so they get a financial return, Prince just donated to foundations that support environmental causes and a transition to solar power. Number 6, Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page is the virtuoso guitarist and founder of Led Zeppelin. Jimmy is largely known as one of the greatest guitarists in the history of rock music. I mean, he set the standard for the many who have imitated his electric style. Yet, what he may not want you to know about him is his predatory relationship with a young girl who was only 14 at the time. While he toured with Led Zeppelin, Jimmy dated Lori Maddox, although they kept their relationship extremely private and basically hidden because it was, you know, illegal and creepy. Even in the loose 70s, this relationship could have put Page in jail. They dated for a little while, and who knows what they did behind the scenes, but Jimmy eventually dumped her for BB Bell, who was of age at the time, thank God. Either way, not a fan of this one.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Sean Penn. A number of women have come forward saying that Sean Penn has been aggressive towards them. In fact, he has mistreated a number of his partners, including Madonna. They were married from 1985 to 1989. While in December of 1988, Penn allegedly tied Madonna to a chair and held her hostage for 9 hours and apparently hit her multiple times. When he untied her to let her use the bathroom, she fled to the police station. One officer said, and I quote, "Madonna staggered into the station. She was distraught, crying with makeup smeared all over her face. I hardly recognized her. She had obviously been struck." Sean was charged with inflicting corporal injury and traumatic conditions on Madonna, as well as battery. But Madonna withdrew her complaint a week later and has rarely commented on it since, which is quite odd. Why would she say that he harmed her and then retract the statement? So who knows what really happened?
At number 4 is Jackie Chan. While Jackie Chan appeared as a comedic kung fu fighting man on the screen, his personal life is absolutely insane and surprisingly not well known. In fact, Jackie himself didn't know until well into his career just how many secrets were being kept in his family. He learned in 2003 that he had 2 secret brothers living in China and that his father was a nationalist spy on secret missions to bust substance crime in mainland China. In fact, that's where he met Jackie's mother. In what seems like a moment straight out of a noir crime boss movie, Jackie's father met his mother, Lily Chan, because he was sent to bust her as an infamous dealer and legendary gambler in Shanghai. So, his mother was one of the lords of the Chinese underbelly, and his father was sent to arrest her. The two fled to Australia together, where they lived until their death. Jackie's father also revealed that the actor's real family name isn't Chan at all, but rather Fang. How's that for a family reunion? In at number 3 is Rose McGowan. Rose was one of the founding spokespersons in the Me Too movement, joining dozens of women who brought Harvey Weinstein to justice. She is best known for her 90s movies like Jawbreaker, Scream, and Encino Man. But what you may not know about her is her rather horrifying upbringing. She was born in Florence, Italy, where her parents lived in a commune called the Children of God. Basically, she was born into a cult that had mass allegations of horrifying crimes against humanity. I can't really say what they are because of YouTube restrictions, but if you're curious, I suggest you look into it with a serious content warning in mind. The cult in question lured people in with promises of all kinds of physical intimacy and activities with extremely young women set to perform such acts on the men in the cult. Luckily for Rose, she was largely protected from the more heinous side of the cult, and she and her family fled when she was 14 years old, where, quote, "We hid in an old stone house and had to boil pots of water to take baths. The cult sent people to find us. I remember a man trying to break in with a hammer." Number 2 on the list, Rihanna. While the celebrity singer is in the news lately for her exciting pregnancy with A$AP Rocky, what you may not know about her is her rather insane early life, and the secrets that they kept even from her until they were finally brought to light. Old family photos were unearthed that reveal a secret side of the family that Rihanna herself rarely ever talks about: her father's other kids. Rihanna has 3 older siblings through her father by 3 different women, as he admitted to being quite the womanizer in his heyday. Her and her father have an extremely complicated relationship, as he has dealt with substance use issues for most of his life. And now to find out that she had 3 other siblings she knew nothing about, it's a wonder the two have stuck together through so much.
Last but certainly least, in our number 1 spot, Jimmy Savile. Radio personality Jimmy Savile was always upheld as an outstanding citizen that was not only generous but also a very charitable man. So charitable, in fact, that he was even knighted by the Queen for his illustrious career. Although after his death, his dark secrets began to slowly come to light and his reputation will be changed forever. After his death in 2011, Time magazine reported on multiple allegations in regards to sexual misconduct and assault. According to Exaro, the review found that he had been involved in an inappropriate sexual conduct with boys and girls, 3 of which were only 9 years old at the time. Many of the accusations even put the abuse in a timeline where he was still working for the BBC, meaning that for years his predatory behavior had either gone unnoticed or was covered up to protect their image.
Kicking off the countdown list, number 10 is her lip injections. Is it really a Kylie Jenner list if it doesn't talk about her lips? I mean, I feel like that would be a sin not to talk about her lips. For years now, her lips have always been the most talked about feature on her body. Believe it or not. Her fans first noticed that as she started to grow older, she seemed to have fuller lips. And for a while, she was telling her fans that it was just lip liner and a photo filter, making them look more full. Over time, she did finally come clean about getting lip injections, and it was revealed that she had them done when she was just a teenager. Turns out she had her first injections when she was just 16 years old. And she said that she kept it a secret because she didn't want people to look at her as a bad influence. Because obviously when you're 16, you have a lot of young fans, and you don't want to be putting needles in your face at 16 years old. Girl, too young. You know what I saw? That just means Kris Jenner had to sign off on that, because you will need parental consent. Coming in next at number 9 is the envy between Kylie and Kendall. When your entire family is famous and everyone has their own businesses running, one might think that there would be some kind of competition going on. I mean, some of their products and businesses are like a conflict of interest with each other. Like they're in competition. But because they are all sisters and they are all very successful, each sister has said that they do not feel threatened by anyone else. But there was some tea spilled and a source claimed that Kendall and Kylie have a secret rivalry that's never really talked about. The sisters seem to be incredibly close to us because of their small age gap and their many collaborations throughout the years. But a source told Radar Online, I quote, "There's so much envy between these two, it's as though they're not happy when the other one is doing well." Some little sister competition going on. I mean, I get that. I feel like there might naturally just be a little bit of envy there. Cruising into number 8 is her hair. Just by following her or seeing some of her pictures, you'd be able to tell that her hair is fake. She switches up her look often, usually sporting bright colored wigs or changing up the length and color of her real hair with hair extensions. But her appearance is important for her brand for many reasons. You probably never stop to think about why she keeps changing her hair. And I don't blame you, because there are like a million other more important things to think about. But it turns out that she makes these changes on purpose. She said that changing her hair makes her feel like a new person. And many of us females can totally relate to that. Despite her brand having to do with some of it, there seems to be more personal reasoning behind it too. I mean, I can't say I've never dyed my hair, wanting to feel like a different person. Like, you know, post breakup, I gotta get new hair, I'm a new me.
Next up is Frank Sinatra. The smooth singing romantic who charmed his audiences into the Hall of Greats has a seriously dark secret personal life. In fact, every move Frank Sinatra made was meticulously tracked by the FBI for 40 years in pages and pages of files. Why, you may ask? Well, outside of being held in suspicion for dodging the draft because of a supposed ear infection, he is also thought to have strong mafia ties. He's been seen in cahoots with a revolving cast of characters connected to the criminal underworld, including Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana, with whom he was close friends. Apparently, the FBI was so closely tracking Sinatra because he had introduced Sam to John F. Kennedy's campaign for presidency in an attempt to deliver Union votes. Dodging the draft and electing John F. Kennedy, Sinatra is a man after my own heart.
Sliding into number 6 is the fact that she is shy. Now I know what you're thinking. The way she posts on social media, you wouldn't think that she is necessarily the shy type. She often posts pictures in barely anything clothing and in bikini, showing off her skin and flaunting her curves. The reality is though, who she is on social media and who she is behind the scenes are two totally different people. She appears to have all the confidence in the world, but she's actually quite shy. She was speaking with People magazine when she let it slip that she is a lot more shy than people think, and in really busy situations, she gets anxious and shy very easily. She plays it off well though, especially seeing as there's cameras surrounding her every single day. She seems like a natural. So she is hiding that well. I did not picture her as like the shy type. We are halfway.
In at number 5, Lance Armstrong. In 2012, champion cyclist Lance Armstrong denied that he ever relied on performance-enhancing drugs. He referred to the doping allegations against him as outlandish and heinous. However, when the US Anti-Doping Agency revealed compelling evidence, the cyclist's house of lies began to crumble. The agency released about 1,000 pages of evidence in doping allegations against Armstrong and his teammates. This led to him being stripped of 7 Tour de France titles and bronze Olympic medal, plus his secret forced him to step down as chairman of the Livestrong Foundation. Armstrong would later give a detailed account of his doping to Oprah Winfrey in 2013.
You know, I view this situation as one big lie that I repeated a lot of times.
Moving along to number 4, Kylie is stubborn. Her biggest fans would love to think that they know everything about her. A big part of having celebrity status is that all your fans think they personally know you. It's kind of weird when you think about it. Like, people obsess over someone that they've never actually met and know nothing about. But even if you thought you knew what she was like, one of her traits that she might not want you knowing about is that she is incredibly stubborn. Welcome to the club, sister. I know all about that. There are many different words that can be used to describe her, and an insider dish that stubborn is one of them. They said, I quote, "If you knew Kylie, she can be very stubborn. When she makes her decisions, she sticks by them." I mean, I feel like that's not necessarily a bad trait though. Or maybe I'm just saying that because I'm stubborn and I want to think it's a good thing, but in some cases, being stubborn isn't really a bad thing.
Next up is Hollywood actor Casey Affleck. I'm surprised we haven't done this one yet, honestly. Known for movies like Manchester by the Sea and Gone Baby Gone, Affleck is a critic's best friend. But he's not everyone's best friend. In fact, Casey has been accused by multiple women of committing horrifying acts against them. Some say that he snuck into their bedrooms, others that when they refused his advances, he sent them violent and aggressive texts. Other women have said that he ordered a crew member to expose himself to this one woman. All of these allegations were attempted to be taken to court to be filed as multi-million-dollar lawsuits, but they were both settled for unknown amounts. Thanks to these settlements, we may never know if these accusations are true or not, but it seems really odd that not many people are talking about it these days. In fact, when asked about it, Casey brushes it off as hearsay, and his dark past seems to be fading into secrecy once again.
In spot number 2 is her secret cousin. That's right, apparently Kylie has a cousin that has been behind the shadows this whole time. The craziest part is that she looks like a spitting image of Kylie. You may have already seen her on social media. Her name is Natalie Zettel, and she's the youngest cousin of the family and is a low-key Instagram model. People recently caught on to this unknown little fact, and no one is really sure why we are just finding this out. Natalie is the daughter of Kris Jenner's younger sister. People found out about her after a picture of her and Kylie started surfacing on the internet. When you see them together side by side without all the makeup and hair and wigs and all of that, you can tell that they're related, and it's kind of cute. She's beautiful. Finally, we have made it to number 1, and we have her pregnancy was unexpected. Alright, so the majority of us, this isn't really a secret. I feel like we all assumed this anyway, but it's totally not fair to judge someone that we don't even know on whether or not they planned on getting pregnant. Because really, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. The world went to a frenzy when the rumors first started, and Kylie completely went MIA and hid it from the entire world. When she first found out about her pregnancy, she wanted to keep that moment for herself rather than live it out in front of the world, where she says that she would have been judged for it. Which she probably would have because she was so young. She admits that she did not plan on getting pregnant, but that it was the most amazing experience nonetheless. I mean, I get it. If I was her age and had that platform and I unexpectedly got pregnant, The amount of anxiety I would have, I wouldn't even want to tell my own parents, let alone the entire world.
In at number 10, Woody Harrelson. In order for Woody Harrelson to become the man that he is today, he had to overcome a lot of baggage that his father left over for him. Woody is a prolific actor now and just about nails it with every performance that he delivers. Although around the age of 12, Woody learned more about his father than he probably wanted to. Upon looking into what Woody's father actually did for a living, we found a ton of evidence online that he used to be a hitman. There is an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to each of the murders that he was involved with, including allegations of being involved with John F. Kennedy's assassination, although that's probably more conspiracy theory than anything else. In 1968, he was acquitted by a jury in Angleton, Texas for the murder of Alan Burr. That same year, he was tried again for the 1968 murder-for-hire killing of a man named Sam Degelia Jr. Apparently, he was paid about $2,000, which by today's standard would be about 15 grand, to murder the grain dealer and father of 4. Woody Harrelson's father was then sentenced to 15 years in jail, but was released on good behavior after only 5 years. His nail in the coffin, though, was when he and his wife were implicated in the murder of Judge John H. Wood Jr. in 1979. In at number 9, Lamar Odom. The former NBA star who was once married to Khloe Kardashian certainly had a spotlight put on his life and struggles therein that exposed some of his deepest and darkest secrets. I truly believe that if he hadn't have married a Kardashian, we still would have never really learned who he truly was. In his 2019 memoir titled Darkness to Light, Lamar talks about the scandal that took place at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel in 2012. He had arranged for 2 to meet him there, as well as reaching out to his drug contact to provide a stash, as he put it. When his wife saw the bill come up on his credit card, though, she immediately showed up with her mom, Kris Jenner, and pounced on the first woman that she saw. Lamar recalls Khloe dropping vicious blows while Kris screamed for her security team to restrain her daughter. Khloe then instructed the security to dispose of all the in the room. Although it wasn't much long after this that in 2015 he was found again overdosing in a hotel room, again accompanied by this time, however, there was no Kardashian at his side to hide the mess that he had just made. In at number 8, Joaquin Phoenix. Believe it or not, but Phoenix isn't actually Joaquin's last name. He was born in the Puerto Rican commune known as the Children of God cult. At the age of 4, his parents managed to escape the cult and relocate their family to the mainland. From there, they changed their last name to Phoenix in order to symbolize a rebirth. Although Joaquin's dark past didn't stop there. His family struggles continued in 1992 when he watched his brother River Phoenix die from an overdose. To make matters worse, he was the one who had to call 911 after his brother collapsed at the famous Viper Room nightclub in Los Angeles. In at number 7, Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder will forever be remembered as one of the cornerstones of comedic acting. He had unparalleled ability to make people smile. However, it was this image that he had built around himself as a comedian that also barred him from ever talking about his struggles with mental health. It wasn't until Gene Wilder passed away at the age of 83 that many fans learned exactly what had been plaguing him for years. When Us Weekly released his cause of death, they mentioned that he had complications with Alzheimer's disease. Not too long after that, his family released a statement to clarify why he had kept his diagnosis private. His nephew said in a statement, "The decision to wait until this time to disclose his condition wasn't vanity, but more so that the countless young children that would smile or call out to him, 'There's Willy Wonka,' would not have to be exposed to an adult referencing illness or trouble and causing delight to travel to worry, disappointment, or confusion. He simply couldn't bear the idea of one less smile in the world." And I think I'm gonna cry now. Yep, we're getting watery. In at number 6, Jack Nicholson. As a superstar both on and off the screen, Jack Nicholson has had an incredible life so far that seemed to be all out in the open for everyone to see. Back in June of 1974 though, when Jack was 37 years old, he discovered shocking new details about his own birth. With his movie Chinatown scheduled to premiere in theaters everywhere, a reporter at Time magazine decided to do a cover story of Jack. Although while preparing for this story and doing some research on the actor, the reporter discovered that the woman for whom Jack had lovingly referred to as his sister was actually his biological mother. Jack had been the illegitimate child of 17-year-old June Nicholson on April 22nd, 1937. Although because she was so young, her parents agreed to raise Jack as their own and present to him that June was actually his sister. It's said that even on their deathbeds, both maternal grandparents of Nicholson had kept this secret from him.
In at number 5 is Mathew Broderick. Mathew Broderick is known largely for his titular role as Ferris Bueller in the John Hughes coming-of-age film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was also in The Producers and a bunch of other A-list movies. What you may not know about him, however, is that he was directly involved and in fact caused the death of numerous people. He and Jennifer Grey, the star of Dirty Dancing, were on a romantic vacation in Ireland when Mathew head-on hit the car of a 28-year-old woman and her mother. Both women were pronounced dead at the hospital. The road was straight and easy to navigate. The issue was that they were in Ireland, and he, out of habit, drove on the wrong side of the road, which led to the crash. Following the accident, Broderick was convicted of careless driving but was only fined $175, which to this day the family of the victims called a quote travesty of justice.
In at number 4, Chris D'Elia. Actor and comedian Chris D'Elia just recently was part of the Netflix show called You, and in the show he plays a scumbag comedian that was also hiding the fact that he was secretly a pedophile. Turns out that he had just been method acting for this role for a very long time. D'Elia has been accused of grooming and attempting to solicit nude photographs from underage girls. A woman named Simone tweeted out a screenshot of her alleged interactions with Chris, which began a thread of other women sharing their interactions with him as well. The stories are all pretty horrific considering that these women were all underage at the time that Chris had been sending these messages to them. To make matters even worse for him, a video clip from his podcast was uploaded where he said that 14-year-old girls look like they're 30. At the time of making this video, Chris has yet to comment on the accusations, so keep that in mind, but with that said, he is most definitely keeping some dark secrets. In at number 3, Richard Pryor. This dark secret would probably not sound like a big deal to everyone living in 2020, but back in the 1970s it would have been much more dangerous. Both Richard Pryor and Marlon Brando kept each other's secrets right up until their death, although the widow of Richard Pryor confirmed a claim by music producer Quincy Jones that the late comedian and Marlon Brando were indeed lovers. His widow Jennifer Lee Pryor said that he was openly bisexual and would be cracking up about his relationship with Brando going public. Having his widow back this story up does give it a lot more weight considering that Quincy Jones is known to make some wild claims. He also has said that Marlon Brando had no objection to sleeping with anyone, and he allegedly has been with James Baldwin as well as Marvin Gaye. But what a power couple those two could have been in today's age. Can you imagine if Richard Pryor and the Godfather Marlon Brando were a Hollywood couple? Amazing. That would have been amazing. Leave me a comment down below what you think their celebrity couple name would be. And at number 2, Charlize Theron. Before she became a world famous actress, Charlize Theron suffered through a lot of tragedy in her childhood. While speaking with Howard Stern, she spoke openly about what it was like to grow up in a household with an alcoholic father and what it was like to deal with her mother shooting and killing her dad in self-defense. For most of her life, Charlize had to just ignore her shocking past. Whenever someone asked her about her father, she had to lie and say that he was killed in a car accident. She didn't tell anyone, nor did she ever want to tell anyone what had actually happened. Imagine holding that traumatic secret not only for yourself, but for your mother as well. During the talk with Stern, she also said that she never wanted to feel like a victim, which is kind of why she avoided telling this story for so long. Adding, "I struggled with that for many years until I actually started therapy." Charlize is not ashamed of what her mother had to do in order to protect them though. She believes that the more we talk about these things, the more that we realize we are not alone in any of it. For her, she just looks at it as a life lesson, a story about growing up with an alcoholic father and what that does to a person.
And in at number 1 is Mark Wahlberg. The actor and singer needs no introduction, but he may need a little disclaimer beside his name for the rather horrifying incident he caused in the 80s. When he was 16 years old, Mark had an extremely harsh life, and he ended up brutally harming an elderly Vietnamese man in a racially motivated attack. He shouted slurs at him while physically harming him so badly that Mark was charged with attempted murder. While he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, for some reason he only served 45 days. In a beautiful show of faith, his victim, whose name is Johnny Trin, stated that he forgives Mark. Quote, "Everyone deserves another chance. He was young and reckless, but I forgive him now. He paid for his crime when he went to prison." Mark got a pardon from the court, basically exonerating him from his crime, an action that he later stated he regrets. Quote, "I didn't need that. I spent 28 years righting the wrong. I was relieved to find out that the injuries to his eye had occurred in the early 70s and not from the incident that happened that night, but I was able to meet with him and his wife and his daughter and apologize for these horrific acts. Some good can come out of it."
In at number 10, Leighton Meester. You'd never be able to tell by how she carries herself today, but this polished celebrity was actually born in a Texas prison while her mother was serving time for drug smuggling. Though her mother was allowed to spend 12 weeks in a halfway house with newborn Leighton, she was soon sent back to jail. Meester ended up living with her grandmother in Florida until her mother was released. At 10, her family moved to New York so that she could begin a career modeling, only to then pack up again 4 years later and head to Los Angeles. Once in Hollywood, she began auditioning for various roles while taking acting classes, but she found it difficult to relate to kids her age because of her unstable upbringing, an upbringing that she kept hidden for a very long time. Her breakout acting role was when she portrayed Blair Waldorf on Gossip Girl, a character whose mother was the owner of a fashion empire, which, as you can imagine, was a stark contrast from her actual childhood. Today, though, she was worth an estimated $16 million. In at number 9, Selena Gomez. In typical rumor mill fashion, when singer Selena Gomez decided to cancel part of her world tour in 2013, the gossip magazines did all kinds of speculating as to why. They said she was battling a drug and alcohol addiction and listed a plethora of other unconfirmed conspiracies. The real reason that these types of stories kind of bubble up is because of how secretive celebrities are. Although, can we blame them? I'm sure there are some parts of their life that they just want to keep quiet. And it turns out Gomez had been hiding a secret from the world, but it had nothing to do with indulging in addictions. Later on, Selena revealed to Billboard that she had to undergo chemotherapy to treat lupus, a chronic autoimmune disease. She mainly wanted to wait for the right time to talk about it, and when she did, she didn't want to be loud about the whole thing. Selena just wanted to wait so that she could properly use her platform to help spread awareness. In at number 8, Prince. Prince has always been a wild and eccentric character. I mean, in 1993, he literally changed his name to a symbol. If that's not the definition of an enigma, I don't know what is. Although this brilliant musician was hiding a big secret from the world. For his entire life, Prince had been coping with epilepsy, which is a serious medical condition. Although in 2009, he revealed this secret during an interview with PBS. In the interview, Prince told host Tavis Smiley, "I'd never spoken about this before, but I was born epileptic. I used to have seizures when I was young. My mother and father didn't know what to do or how to handle it, but they did the best they could with what little they had." Although Prince said that after a while he was able to keep his condition largely under control. He also noted though that this control over his epilepsy came by way of an angel that spoke to him.
In spot number 7 is her weird collection. Having a collection is not uncommon, even having weird collections isn't uncommon. People collect things all the time, and it kind of just depends on what you think is weird or not. I personally collect stuffed animals. And I'm serious, I call them my furry friends and I love them. And I would love if you guys would let me know in the comments if you have a weird collection. This is a judgment-free zone. Yeah, let me know. But anyways, back to Kylie. Her collection is really random, and it's easy to think that it probably has to do with fashion or beauty or skincare, but it turns out it is not even close to that. Turns out she has a collection of rubber ducks and has been collecting them for years. When she was younger, the one thing she always asked for on her birthday was a rubber duck, and she said she still has some of her very first ones. I wonder if she'll pass them along to Stormy, because that would actually be really cute.
In at number 6, Caitlyn Jenner. Back in 1971, Jenner participated in their first decathlon, and by 1972, Jenner was competing in the decathlon at the Munich Olympics. At those Olympics, they finished 10th overall in the event, and in 1976, Jenner went on to win the gold in the decathlon at the Montreal Olympics and was declared by the media to be the world's greatest athlete. Jenner was able to accomplish all of this while living with a deep personal secret that wouldn't be shared with the public for, I don't know, another 40 years? In 2014, Jenner announced that they were divorcing from longtime wife Kris Jenner, and just a year later, Jenner shocked the world when they revealed that they had undergone gender reassignment surgery. At the age of 65, Caitlyn Jenner introduced herself to the world, and by 2015, ESPN had awarded Jenner the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, and to this day, Caitlyn is one of the most prominent public figures to come out as transgender.
Next on the list is Kevin Spacey, and not for what you might think, because really nothing can keep what he did a secret, and his attempts at hiding it are abysmal at best. But what you may not know is that there are more than a few skeletons in his closet, and he's got one secret that I actually didn't know. Kevin's left-leaning political views are very well known, so it may come as a surprise that his father was vehemently racist and believed that white people were a superior race. Kevin refuses to talk about his father, but his siblings have opened up a handful of times about their traumatic childhood, often describing their father as an evil monster. Apparently, their father would also continually his kids while they were growing up, and it got so bad that Kevin's brother Randy almost took the life of his father while the young boy was hiding in a closet, but he never opened the door. Although Kevin is a reprehensible human being, no boy deserves to grow up in such a horrifying environment.
In at number 4, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This secret that Arnold kept ended up being the bombshell that destroyed his marriage. Just 5 days after Arnold's then wife Maria Shriver gave birth to their fourth son in 1997, the couple's housekeeper, Mildred Patricia Baina, also gave birth to a son by the same action star. He kept this child of his a secret until he completed 2 terms as California's governor in 2011. Then he finally confessed his infidelity to Shriver and later the public. All it took was the media identifying the mystery baby mama and and thus the celebrity scandal had been completed. There have always been celebrities that kept their kids out of the public eye, but nothing in terms of what Arnold was able to pull off by keeping this all a secret for so long. Imagine seeing that kid and be like, this kid looks like Arnold's son. Is that Arnold's son?
Taking over the third spot is she wants to live behind the scenes. If you look at her social media, you might get the impression that she loves all of the attention that she gets, but the truth is she doesn't. She doesn't like being recognized every time she goes out, and she would rather live a more private life. During an interview with Wonderland magazine, she said, "I want to be a businesswoman and behind the scenes. Kylie Jenner needs to retire." Girl, I hate to break it to ya, but your career is just getting started. She still chooses to live her life in the public eye, but admits that she hates a lot of the attention she gets and the pressures that come along with it. Realistically though, even if she didn't want to live in the public eye anymore, it's kind of too late for that. Like, she could never just go out and people weren't gonna freak out.
In at number 2, Drake. This one was a huge reveal because for so long people were just simply speculating on whether or not Drake was dating someone. So when Pusha T released a track with the line directed at Drake that said, "You are hiding a child, let that boy come home, Adonis is your son," everyone that was watching that feud had this jaw-dropping moment when Drake finally revealed his secret son named Adonis. How did Pusha T know this? Drake would later record a song called Emotionless that explained why he had kept his son hidden from the public. He just didn't want to expose his son to the world that would have had their eyes on his every move. And it's understandable, but I believe it baffled people because it wasn't like he was like happily married to someone. He appeared to just be this rolling stone that was always rumored to be romantically involved with one celebrity or another. Last but certainly not least, on our number 1 spot, Justin Timberlake and Jessica Biel. Like many celebrities on this list, JT and JB have had an awful time trying to keep their personal lives out of the public eye. One thing that has certainly helped keep a lot of secrets is, well, this pandemic. I mean, if the paparazzi can't come within 6 feet of you and everyone's on lockdown in their homes, the tabloids must be just suffering right now. Although the Daily Mail still found a way to unearth some celebrity secrets when they revealed that Jessica had secretly given birth to a baby boy. The family are thought to be in Big Sky, Montana, where they have been spending time amid the coronavirus pandemic, and both of them have neglected to share any details whatsoever about the pregnancy, so I guess we'll have to check the Daily Mail if you want info on that celebrity secret.